welcome to another edition of Inside the Process. And this is a special edition because I have the chance to have... and a challenging one as well. I have the chance to have my friend, Beth McDonald here. I've known Beth for a good long time now, over 15 years. And Beth and I have our own creative processes, and we have found a path to synchronizing our creative processes, and they're really different. Many of you will know Beth, particularly if you follow my Facebook page, because I share some of her posts, and there's lots of YouTube video out there with Beth and I together. So why don't I ask Beth to give a little history, either of Beth or of our collaboration.
Say of the United States.
Yeah, because see, here's my script. It is blank, because I'm going to write it as we go. Because I know that Beth and I will be able to just
so that the next when we do it for real, then we know what we're doing. Okay. So what am I doing? I'm talking about history, our history.
You're probably only going to see this rehearsal though, so let's get the rehearsal right.
Oh, okay.
So when did we meet, and how did we meet?
So like in a long time ago, I don't even know what year it was.
Far away?
Rob, I think in terms of like how old Robbie was, and my goodness, long time ago.
It would have been about 2001 or 2 that we actually met.
So that's going on 20 years. That's a long time. So we were both attending the same church when we met, and Joe was hired as what I refer to as the principal encourager of the church. He was technically known as the worship arts director. And I was completely content at that time to be in the background. I was happy to be on worship team, singing, but always harmonizing and singing with someone else. I didn't ever want to take the lead, because to this day, that is mortifying to me. I don't crave the spotlight at all. So Joe had his hands full trying to convince me to come out of my shell and be willing to perform by myself. And that was a whole other challenge when he then tried to convince me to share some of the music that I had created. So this man who sits before you is the person to which I owe a huge debt of gratitude, because I would not be doing this without Joe. I was simply too afraid. So,
but then,
like it or not, Joe.
And she had all these creative objections as to why she wouldn't sing by herself.
Mm-hmm.
And I kept meeting them, and then the goalpost kept moving. Mm-hmm. But during that process, and my job at the church, I was hired actually specifically to do what Beth is talking about, to facilitate the ministries, encourage the talents, and develop the gifts of people in the church. When the position was created, it wasn't necessarily created with music in mind. It could be any discipline, like it could have had a youth minister. It could have been any number of things. Music was one of the things it could have been. So the board created this position. I was attending the church at the time, and so I figured, you know what, somebody probably had this idea, and I thought about it. And I was actually in church music ministry years before, and had retired in 1990 when I was 30 years old. I was music director of the church I grew up in for 11 years. And I started going on the road. I started living a life that didn't allow me to be in church every week, and I thought that period of life was over for me. I'm the only 30-year-old I ever heard of who got a retirement dinner. I didn't get a gold watch, but I got a plaque, right? And I thought it was funny to hang the plaque in my office when I signed on at the Chestertown Church of the Nazarene where I met Beth. So I had a job to do, and I was going to do that job, so I stayed persistent with that. And after about a year and a half in church,
it was literally a year and a half.
In a Sunday evening service, Beth sang as an adult for the first time in public in her life, and I played behind her. And what did you sing in that Sunday evening church service?
Stormy weather.
Oh, it was a jazz whisper service. Yeah. Right. And so that was the beginning of a long and winding road for Beth and I to share our collaborative processes. And what Beth had already alluded to is that she is a songwriter, and I would, if you had to call Beth one thing in terms of music, it would be singer-songwriter. Now, what genre that is, forget it. It's kind of all over the place. So we have to make singer-songwriter a genre in order to accommodate Beth, whose influences are, I was going to say all over the place, but they're just broad, they're varied, it all runs very deep with Beth. And so she and I began to collaborate on her songs. She's recorded several albums, some I was with her and some I wasn't, but right now we're working on one, and actually this will be the time to announce the Kickstarter, because I don't want to forget. Right, so you may have seen, if you're on the Facebook page, me share something about Beth's new recording, or share some scenes from the studio. I'm really delighted to be able to do this project with Beth in what we consider a musical partnership, and that's kind of what we call it, or we call ourselves musical partners. And Beth has, I don't want to say cooperated. Beth has joined me on some things on my side, and I've joined her on some things.
It sounds like you're dragging me by my ear.
No. Well, at one point.
That's true. That's
yeah.
true. I earned that. Okay.
Yeah. So anyway, when this runs, which is going to be the last Wednesday of October, there's going to be about a week to go in Beth's Kickstarter campaign. And I'll try to put a link in the comments or make another post on Facebook, or if I do this on YouTube, you're going to find a way to get to that if you're so inclined. Because what Beth is able to, I was going to say is able to create, but that's the wrong word. What Beth has given, she's given as she understands it now to share. She wasn't all about that sharing part at first, but she has embraced that as a calling. Beth and I actually just recorded a video for a church under the banner of Call to Create, which I think perfectly describes how we both individually look at this, and also how we look at our collaboration. So why don't you describe Paint Me Blue, which is the project we're doing right now?
So Paint Me Blue is the recording that I have referred to as being the most me of any project I've ever done. I have a favorite recording of mine, which was something that I did for my kids when they were little, and that is At Last, Love Songs and Lullabies. And that had covers of music where the lyrics were appropriate from a parent to a child, and then it had some of my original material. And the reason that's so special to me is I wanted to create something that wouldn't get on parents' nerves if it was playing in the background, like, Barney or something. Sorry, Barney, didn't mean to offend you, or Barney lovers out there. But I wanted to create something that would be not offensive and actually pleasing for the parents to listen to. And I was really pleased with that project, and obviously my heart was for my kids. They were 2 and 4 at the time. But since that time, I've had the opportunity to record several other projects, and I'm proud of them in different ways. But this one is the most true to who I am as a singer-songwriter. I always claim I'm more of a songwriter than I am a singer, but I have to embrace that full title. And this one kind of puts me in a more vulnerable place, shares things that I think people will really connect to. I've said I hope you connect to it, because if not, it was a big waste of time.
Stop that.
No, I really do think people will. I think the music itself will resonate with people, because it just kind of taps into what we all share as humans, the emotions we go through, and it's not always sunshine and lollipops. And so this album has some heavier, darker material, but it also has an element of hope and redemption, and I'm very pleased with it, and I would be extremely ecstatic if you would support it on Kickstarter, because we haven't had as much opportunity to get out there and perform lately, so the help is much appreciated. Right, Joe?
Always. And thank you for all your support, and Beth is very grateful and excited for the support that she is receiving as well. Okay, so we got the commercial done. We did good.
Woohoo!
All right. So I have to confess that before knowing Beth and kind of getting into the world of a songwriter, I was never one who was engaged by lyrics much at all. Or if I was, I wasn't even aware that I was. And so I was this instrumental guy, and I'm still an instrumental guy, and people ask me, why don't you ever sing? I say, because I want to keep my job, and Beth can attest to that. I actually tried a couple of voice lessons with Beth, and for some reason we stopped. Probably because there was no point. But she was being an encourager, you know, and until we stopped. But no.
Well, I did move away.
Well,
So
that
that.
too. We may have stopped before that, but that's actually a good umbrella to put that under. Beth moved away, so we're not doing this anymore. Yeah, Beth and I had lived about 10 minutes apart, and now we live
2.5 hours.
Yeah, and so it makes it more difficult.
Slightly.
So like if I was going to listen to a singer, it would be like Ella, you know,
Oh, yeah.
the whole scat thing, and I really learned from Beth to allow lyrics to get into that same place, even really a deeper place, because the more you let into that place, the more that place grows. And so now I can be fully engaged with Beth's songs and also songs of other people, which when she writes, she shares them with me. And it's enriched me to know Beth and to be brought into a whole nother world. It's really just enlarging the world I already know and have. So speaking of Beth sharing her songs, I call Beth Irving Berlin. Irving Berlin, if you know about him, he would write songs and put them in a file drawer and take them out sometimes decades later. Like This Is the Army, Mr. Jones. It was written in World War I, released in World War II. I think God Bless America was written like 15 years before it was released. And he did things like that all the time. So
He's very prolific too. I mean, just a lot of stuff.
Speaking of prolific, she's sitting right here, right? And of course, I've known Beth for 15, 20 years, which means that for most of her life, I didn't know her, but I know about her, and I know that she had an identity, a self-identity as a songwriter from a teenager. So
Technically 9. I was
9? I didn't know that. So talk about that and your piano lessons.
I didn't start writing lyrics to music until I was probably 14. So in that year, I was a teenager. And then it all started, like you always call it, the faucet. When the faucet is on, like, better watch out because music just kind of keeps coming. But that's when the faucet really turned on, was I was around 14, filled with angst and sadness and teenager drama and stuff like that. I poured it out into my music.
And I've heard a number of those songs, or maybe a lot of them. Probably not most of them, because some of them she still probably has forgotten about until she rediscovers them.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, I have sometimes been the one to remind Beth she wrote a song.
True.
I wrote that? When? Oh, yeah, here. I mean, there are literally hundreds of songs. You know, but as she goes through, you know, boxes of papers or cassettes
Sticky
or something.
notes.
Right. And then she'll either find an old recording or she'll make a new recording of an old song. And yeah, angsty teenage drama, which is just grown with you into angsty adult
Why not?
drama.
Let's go with it.
Yeah, and people do really relate the best songs. But all that time, from the time you were a teenager, I think you told me you even had imagined or actually designed the album cover. And how old were you?
I have no idea. I don't even know what it meant. I knew I wanted to use the word classic, and I wanted something about a hand on the front cover. I wanted some sort of imagery that involved a hand. That's what I remember. And where did that come from? I don't know, but fast forward, my record label is Classic Avenue Records, and I did use my little son's hand when he was 2 on the inside cover of the Lullaby album. So it all kind of sort of happened. I don't know. That's funny. You remember that. You remember more than I do. I need to keep him around because I forget.
Yeah.
As soon as
I have to make myself useful or valuable in some way. So when I met Beth, not only would she not sing by herself in public, she would sing background. You know, like in the worship teams set up, she would be there singing harmony as long as other people were singing melody.
Yeah.
But that was it. Not only did she not sing by herself, she had all of these songs she had written that she didn't allow anyone to hear.
No.
No, and I think she told the story. Yeah, your mom and your sisters.
So my sisters actually and my best friend, they had heard some of them had sung with me, but then they went into a shoebox and under a bed. I didn't want anyone else actually getting to hear them.
So you told me a story of somehow somebody getting his hands on one of your CDs and playing it at a party or something, and Beth is hearing it in somebody's house, and she had
it was at my house, and we were having some gathering, and there were a lot of people there, and I went upstairs. I think, again, I don't know why I'm going back to this theme, but my sons, who are now 16 and 18, that tells you I think I had to put one to bed or change a diaper or something. So I was upstairs, and I hear my music playing in front of all of the guests downstairs. And I think I descended the staircase in 2 steps. I flew down that staircase like, oh, who found that CD? How is this being played? And Kenny Parks was there just smiling away because he had found something that he thought was a treasure, and I thought should never see the light of day. And so I kind of got busted in that moment that there was hidden music.
So did people actually not know that music existed? Like nobody would be told?
It depends on who it was. I mean, people close to me knew I was a songwriter. So and people at church knew that I sang because I sang harmony and whatever, or I'd even take the lead if it was a duet. As long as I was singing with somebody. But people around, like I wouldn't tell people at work, hey, by the way, I'm a songwriter. It wouldn't have come up. I still don't tell people that I'm a songwriter at work.
Yeah, but at least now if you did, they would be allowed to hear your songs.
Yeah, because now you can just put it on YouTube or Amazon or
Spotify.
All
of that. Yeah. So I don't know if it was before, you'll have to correct my chronology here or inform it, before or after Beth sang Stormy Weather in Church. Probably before. I had been, encouraging Beth. I don't think I was a pest. I was just persistent. That was my job. I was to be persistent. And then one day, Beth walks up to me with a CD, and she says, this is about 1.5 years in, and says, you can listen to this. Now, it seems ridiculous.
I hope I didn't say it that way. Maybe I did. I don't know.
It was, if those weren't the words,
it probably was like, I'm sorry, this is really bad.
No, I don't think you apologized.
Okay.
I mean, you certainly could have. I can believe it.
Open the window a little bit.
Yeah, but it's basically like, you're allowed to hear this. That's kind of what it meant. She didn't say it quite like that.
It sounds pretty.
But I knew how significant that was. The point was that it may sound ridiculous out of context, but in the context of the rapport that Beth and I had by that point, I knew what that meant, right?
That I trusted you.
Yeah.
Like I'm going to share this with you. I'm opening the curtain just a little bit so you can see what it is that I'm about, which was huge for me because I was so worried about it not being good and being ridiculed, and that this was something so personal to me. I didn't really want it out there for the world to see, and that was my way of saying, I trust you with this. So.
And I guess it was inevitable from that point that it would just kind of grow and push out and push out. And that's sort of my thing anyway, not just in the job I had, but just in life in general. Once you grow something to here, that's great. How can we grow it some more?
Mm-hmm.
You know? And at one point, and it was, I think, after a concert, we wound up having a concert series, I think, at the church, or we would have guest artists come in. And after one particular person came in, and Beth, she wrote me a note, and it was a beautifully written note about kind of owning that, you know what, I need to be sharing my things as well.
Mm.
You know, and which was another significant point, and that might have been maybe a year after she handed me the CD. I wasn't like keeping a journal of notes, and you know, it's like, okay, here's Beth's file, and on such and such a day she did this. Goal for next month, do this.
Not exactly how it happened.
No, it wasn't that organized. Other people might be, but no.
But I had my mom speaking into my ear, saying, when I was given these opportunities and encouraged by you to share things, I had her voice in my head saying, who do you think you are? Like, you haven't gotten to the whole, when we started performing together, but that was a year and a half, like, pushing that away. And she said, like, if you don't use what God has given you to use to bless others, then he's just going to give it to someone else. And I thought, well, I kind of like having my music. I felt it wasn't a guilt thing, it was more of a calling. Like, actually, this is stupid for me to keep fighting this, because there's a reason I've been handed this and I don't understand it, but I'm going to go with it. And thankfully I had Joe by my side to do that.
I do remember now, like, one of the lines in the note you wrote me, that is, if I do this, and it was just like 3 or 4 line thing. The last one was, if I do this and fail, it's because I got in the way. Mm-hmm. It was something like that. So it's like, look at that, and it says, okay, everything's kind of where it's supposed to be. You know, and it grew from there. And part of that package was the unlikely thing, as maybe unlikely as Beth singing Stormy Weather in church for the first time as an adult, but it was jazz dress for service, so it was okay. Beth was recruited to sing with a jazz band and offered a New Year's Eve job.
Yeah.
And we had some conversations about that for sure.
Yeah.
And it was legitimately the case that the band leader had lost the singer for the gig, didn't have one. Mm-hmm. You know?
This is after a year and a half of nope, not gonna do it. And my mom saying, who do you think you are? You do this. And finally I agreed, because I wanted to play dress up. And I wanted to record it and tell my kids, hey, mom performed professionally one time. So the assignment was to learn 10 tunes. Mm-hmm. And I was gonna go to this fancy place, get in a fancy dress, and sing 10 tunes.
Was one of them Stormy Weather? I don't remember. I played that gig, so
I'm sure it was. I don't think I've sung it since. But it probably was for that.
Do you remember any of the songs?
Yeah, I did Love,
okay.
I did
Glory of Love, probably.
I don't know if I did that one or not.
It Had to Be You?
I'm sure I did It Had to Be You. But there were some that I did, almost like Falling in Love, which I've never done since. There were some songs that I just...
Or Almost Like Being in Love?
That's right, Almost Like Being in Love. Yeah, there were some songs that I learned and realized I should probably never touch that again, so. Yeah, 10 tunes, and it was all music that came from movie soundtracks or things that I I knew my grandparents enjoyed listening to, and I loved, but I didn't know that it was considered jazz, because
Go ahead and say it.
I don't like jazz. So,
But there was a
in
time.
the definition of jazz, like some people, it depends on how you define jazz. So.
And of course, Beth sang with a band that had the word jazz in the title of the band. And the band leader did have it in his mind that it was not going to be just that one.
Which I didn't know.
I probably did know, but...
Probably. We had to do a gig on the way to the other gig. So it was like you were just roped into the one gig. Oh, by the way, we're going to do this.
Oh, then usually the New Year's when we do all that?
Yeah, and then we did one like 2 days later. What? I didn't sign up for this. I bought the one dress. How am I here?
But now you have a collection of dresses.
Yes. Yeah, now I'm just giving dresses away.
So, I don't know, I remember having this conversation with Beth, and I know I wasn't the only one, that she would enjoy those older songs from movie soundtracks, like It Had to Be You, that Harry Connick Jr. recorded over here in Miss Sally.
Oh my goodness.
And then I'm saying to Beth, and like I say, she wasn't just hearing it from me, that you know, these are kind of just like covers of these great tunes. Go back and listen to when they were recorded. And then, you know, do the original stuff. The movie soundtracks are great, but then what was the first singer that was Julie London that you got enthused about?
Julie London, yeah. Trying to find anyone that sang in a lower range. So I just started absorbing Julie London, Peggy Lee, and Diana Krall, because I could live there. And they sang sort of in my register, and I loved it. I couldn't get enough of it.
So while the singer-songwriter, your identity is that, which is who you've always seen yourself as, was starting to come out in public a little bit. What was really being presented in public was Beth the jazz singer, which is kind of funny.
It is funny.
So that person that she knew she always was and then realized she needed to start sharing was just not lagging behind, but just sort of sitting there while all of a sudden Beth is fronting this jazz band.
Which is hilarious, because I think I told the band leader, I don't like singing by myself. I don't like jazz music, and I don't think I like you either. So, come a long way.
Yes. And that's
Sorry,
unbelievable.
Joe.
No. It was one of those forks in the road that have like 7 prongs. So it's bad enough when you just have to pick like one fork. See, I could have had all kind of responses to what you said.
Yeah.
And I just sort of stared at the camera.
That's a long time friendship right there.
Absolutely. So now Beth was recording and performing, but even in those recordings, not the very first one, I don't think, but the recordings that you did thereafter, you would have always put at least one of your originals on, right?
Oh yeah, several.
Right. But then you took a big leap in 2010.
Yep.
And did a recording of all originals.
Yeah, that was hilarious too.
Yeah. And,
you remember, because you rode that crazy ride with me.
I did. So the short version is that I left that band a few years before Beth did. And so we had a couple of years where we didn't record together or do things, and then after Beth left, we kind of reconnected the collaboration, and all of a sudden I was on this project of all original tunes, which included a tuba in the recording studio.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, we're talking like eclectic, a tuba and a trumpet, and also contemporary tunes, and
yeah, why not?
And the infamous "Oh Crap" tune.
Yeah, that was funny too. The thing that I was thinking about was that whole project came about because I had a concert on the books, and there was a blizzard.
Oh, that's right.
And the blizzard, I mean, it was like
the Avalon Theater.
A crazy blizzard. And so I had people flying in from all over the country for this concert, and they were all excited about it, and then the blizzard. So then that whole thing had to be rescheduled.
Was
So
that
later in
the
the
first
year.
concert that theater actually ever canceled? Because I think I remember that we don't cancel,
Yeah.
but then they canceled it.
Oh, it was crazy. It was a crazy amount of snow. And nobody could have gotten there from anywhere. So just down the street, wouldn't have worked. So we ended up rescheduling it for the fall, I believe. And I thought, hey, why don't we use this as a CD release concert? And it was like, what are you going to record? I don't know. So in the
Welcome through the process.
So in the 6
A
weeks,
mine.
the 6 weeks before we recorded, I wrote most of the music that's on that CD.
That's called Take It From Me.
Yeah.
And
That was fun.
I think you referenced already the spigot, which is I think the term that I started using. And not just with Beth, but with all creative people, you know, that faucet, that spigot, you don't necessarily control when it's on, you know, but when it's on, you need to be prepared for it. You need to have your bucket ready, right? And Beth is, like any creative person, very much in the moment that she's in. And when the time comes, like, you know, when a recording project or an important gig or something is happening because the spigot opens up and all of a sudden we're getting all of these songs that she's writing. Not that she doesn't have hundreds of songs to choose from, but it's like, oh no, the spigot's open and you gotta catch it.
Yeah, you gotta go with something new.
Now, little side parenthesis trip about the process, and I don't know if I've ever talked with Beth much about this. Maybe it's a little different for her than for me. But the challenge is, especially when performing, to control that spigot like on a schedule, you know, because for me, the process of performing or improvising at the piano is kind of like similar, I would say, Beth can disagree if she wants, to the creative space that she's in as a songwriter, where when that comes to her and she's open and she receives it. Now, I don't know that the songwriter has to necessarily be in that state on stage, but for me, that's a state I need to be in. Otherwise, you know, if I have to like think about it upstairs, no, I have to be able to feel it, and art and creativity does come from the feeling place,
Sure.
obviously. So the whole idea of like being that on a calendar and managing that to me is the biggest challenge of being a performing artist. But would it be different for you? How would you relate to that?
So in a performance, I'm trying to connect to the message of the tune and to convey. And you know full well, if I don't connect to a song, I'm not doing that song.
If Beth ain't in it, move on.
You better move on. So, but the whole point of music for me is to reach out to the people that are in the audience and to grab their hearts with something and to make them feel something. That's what we all remember is what you felt in any given moment. So that's the ticket for me as a performer. As a songwriter, I am more, it's all about that connection as well. So I catch them, as you know, pretty much in whole pieces that, you know, God hands to me. And if I sit down and use my brain to figure things out, it's not going to be a good song. Like if I get in the way and decide, oh, well, this would be clever to do this, no. I need to be able to be in a space where I am open to receive and to listen. Now I can make a few tweaks here and there, but my job is not to question it, it's to receive it and to send you an email saying, I just wrote a song. But in that way, it is kind of the same because it's about openness and connection. But I don't put myself in a place where I am now going to sit down and write a song because that's too much here. And everything that I do, if it's going to be of any value, is here. So
I have a what if question for you. So let's take your world and like mess it up by putting the constraints of my world in it. Okay, so let's say on a schedule, let's say at 5 o'clock on a given day, I have to be playing a cocktail hour someplace, so I have to be in that space. So what would it be if you were in a place where at 5 o'clock on a Thursday, and was on your calendar, you had to sit down and write a song?
Yeah, I don't know.
Do you think you could prepare yourself to be in that? Let's say there was a reality show, like a songwriter show, and you had to write a song in front of a camera at a certain time.
Yeah.
How could you prep for that?
I would quit.
Okay, after you quit, several times you would quit.
I would retire.
Then you should come out of retirement and go back and retire. We've been through this.
Yeah.
But so after all that, what would you do?
That is a good question. I have been in positions where, okay, we're going to do this luncheon, and we want you to write a song for it. And that, it's always kind of weird because it's an artificially created sort of thing, whereas what I do is coming from a totally different place. And so I don't take the assignment of writing a song very well, but I have done it, and it's worked. But more so, I think what I would need to do is to have some sort of feeling or experience that I want to convey through a song in my mind. In that sense, I would be prepared, and then see what comes with that as an overarching theme. Because sometimes that's where it comes in. Usually, I don't sit at the piano much, because usually when I do something, I write something and say,
This is
I don't
true.
have time for that. No, but so I feel like if I were more intentional about it, maybe that would happen. But I think I'd have to prepare myself with something going into it instead of just sitting down and sighing heavily. I wonder what I'm gonna write today.
Yeah, that's a great response. And so zero in just a little bit more. The spigot being open, do you feel because that's what is with me. The improvisation thing is kind of like spigot being open. Mm-hmm. Would you, just as a concept, do you think you could ever control the spigot, or is it just going when it goes on, at the most inconvenient times, or can you I'm gonna eat the right breakfast, or I'm gonna pray, or I'm going to put myself in a place and that spigot might come on?
I think prayer much worse than breakfast. A granola bar is not gonna do it for me. I really don't know. Only because I haven't tried that. And I will say, I've tried to put myself in a place where something was coming up, and I thought, well, I don't know what to do, so I'm just going to write a song. And that's when my brain gets in the way, and I screw it all up. And I will sometimes write 3 songs around the same theme and still not get to where I know it needs to be because I'm in my headspace. So as long as I guess I could train myself to get out of that space and connect. It sounds so hokey, but it's true. If I could put myself in a position through prayer or whatever where I'm open to receive, then it would be more authentic.
And so, what I think you're saying is that if it was
solid, maybe.
I like it. So what I'm going to take from that is, if your realm was more like mine and you had to manage that more on a calendar, you would find ways to grow in that realm.
You see it in the experience that it has happened because we've had a target date on the calendar, and I know that there are things that want to come out musically, and I don't know exactly what they are, but I know that I have to have a catcher's mitt and be ready to, so in that sense, I'm kind of planning it, but not really. I just have that date on the calendar and just kind of going with it. So I don't know, I'm all over the place.
Right, but at that point you would have a certain confidence, even if guarded or something, a certain confidence that you are wearing that catcher's mitt, you are walking around the bucket. It will come. It will be given to me. I'm waiting. Kind of thing. Maybe not I'm waiting, but I'm ready. Maybe
I'm ready.
It's better than I'm
Yeah.
waiting. All right, so let me ask you a question, taking my realm again and putting it into yours. So you've heard me talk about Kenny Warner and
Mhm.
Effortless Mastery. I don't think you've ever read the book though, right?
Nope.
Okay. Which is more written for jazz musicians, but it's relatable, really. Even Derek in his golf game could profit from Effortless Mastery. In fact, they promote it as, helping your golf game. So one of the things that he says, and it's absolutely true, in my realm, if I'm in that space, you can be at the point where you can observe yourself doing what you do.
Mm.
Now, can you take that phrase, like when you're in your creative space, you can observe yourself doing it, or you can observe yourself being in the songwriting space? Is that applicable to you?
It is, because when I'm really in the space, I have kind of snapped out of it and realized, whoa, my God, I have my ear way down to the piano. My knee could be up by my chin. I'm in like this weird position, and a lot of times it's I'm leaning in and I'm listening, and I'm just engrossed in absorbing whatever it is that I'm being given, that I've snapped out of it, like, oh, wait a minute, what just happened? So I know what that is. I'm not necessarily looking at myself from above, but I've been just so deeply entrenched in music. So in a sense, I guess that's similar.
Yeah, well, observing yourself does not necessarily mean, although I think it could, out-of-body experience, but you are detached from that because that place in your brain where you are the observer, you're the one who's like thinking, that space is now open. So for me, a measure of am I in the space where I need to be is if I'm playing and I can have like thoughts in my head about something, and sometimes if I'm doing like my Inside the Process stream where you're not sitting here and I'm playing the piano, when I know it's where it needs to be is when I think of something to say and I sort of develop in my head while I'm playing. Yeah. Because it's the same thing. People say, how can you talk to someone while you're playing? Well, if I'm where I need to be, that's a separate sort of space.
I find that I can't really sing and talk to people. So if you could figure that one out for me, that'd be great. Yeah. Sometimes people come up like on the bandstand and they're talking like, should I stop singing the verse to answer this question?
You think that people would understand that? I can roll with that better than you.
Well,
because
like that was my cue, but okay, let's talk about you, whatever.
Yeah. I can also like drink water or laugh uncontrollably or do all sorts of things when I'm playing that you can't do when you're singing.
That's amazing to me, because I don't even think I could do that playing the piano. I just think your brain is amazing.
Well, that just means since I'm not singing, I get away with
a lot that's true.
Stuff. That was my point.
Yeah, and then you guys trying to make me laugh while I'm singing, not cool.
No, that's a part of the job description. Stop. The deal is to find that sweet spot where it's maybe slightly annoying to the singer, but it's still fun. And then once you go over that, then you have to back off and maybe apologize. And look, I've never been difficult with you in that regard. I've never done anything horrible, have I?
I don't think so. Scott, on the other hand.
You got a story?
Just the last thing. I think it was the last thing we did was he was desperately trying to make me laugh, and I think he's eating cake pops and playing 2 instruments out of his mouth at the same time, and just like look over at this ridiculousness, and it's hard not to laugh and completely blow the lyrics of the tune. But
yeah, we're talking about Scott Silbert, kind of the world's cutest sax player.
Let's talk about that, Joe. How do you feel? I'm just kidding.
Oh, I'm so jealous of him. I wanted to be the world's cutest.
Let's explore that.
No, I want to move on. I'm the one who has the clipboard here.
It had nothing on it, and now all of a sudden...
Now it does.
It's like a diagram.
Okay, because you said a couple of things, and I made some notes, so let's go back and revisit them while we can. So, you talked about your process as a songwriter, making people feel something and connecting with people, And then I'm thinking about what we talked about earlier, that you were identifying as a songwriter, even if you would never share your songs with people, never intended to, while you would design the album cover that you would eventually have. Therefore,
It's kind of weird.
no, it's like deep inside that seed was already planted, but you knew all of this.
I did.
And you knew about connecting the people, you just were disconnected from that piece that eventually did have to get plugged in. Because apparently that was an inner tension in a way that needed to resolve.
Oh yeah, it still is, because I know that I'm given this music to share it with other people, or else what good is it? And so trying to figure out how to get the word out there, that's why I did the Kickstarter thing. Really, I mean, the financial piece is very helpful, but I really want to connect with people and have them discover the music, because if they don't, then I'm just kind of whistling Dixie. You know, I don't know what the whole point of being handed all this music is, because I've never really known what to do with it. And I sent you a picture that I took of one of the insides of my poetry and lyrics books as a kid, and it said something like, "This is written from the heart, and I hope one day to." It sounds so pathetic and ridiculous and dorky, but I hope one day my music reaches the hearts of an audience. And even though I wrote it out, the mechanics of actually following through with that was terrifying. And like I said, I wouldn't have done it without you and many others along the way that have helped me. But
Well, you took your time getting there.
Well, I did. But I did know. I did have a knowing, which is why when Mom said to me, you know, what are you doing? Who do you think you are? Because you were given this and you're supposed to use it. You're right. You're right.
You know, it's all about forward progress and measuring or expecting a certain level or volume or speed of progress. I don't think that's so much relevant. It's just if you're progressing, if you're going forward. If you're going forward, you're going forward at the speed you probably can or should, you know. And I could find examples of myself. It took me an awful long time to get there, and it's like, well, I'm glad my heart's still beating, and I can make some headway. This thing that I wish I figured out when I was 20, but not really, because it's all where it's supposed to be. Right. So, yeah. So I wrote down while you were talking about that what I often say about myself, because I'm not, you know, somebody in like the center of pop music or playing, you know, things that everybody knows. And often I'm playing things that no one ever heard of or doesn't hear. Often if they're not seeking it out. So I look at myself as a potential discovery every time I play, you know. And if one person sort of like gets themselves opened up to something that they weren't open up to before because of what I'm doing, that's like, you know, mission accomplished, which is kind of what I hear you saying.
Yeah. Well, that's the whole thing with discovering that old music. Even in the church, I feel like my job sometimes is to stand in the gap and to hold the line and to make sure we're being true to these old traditions that while you don't have to reenact every single note the way the songwriter envisioned, you know, 200 years ago, it's important to keep that music alive, because it's a legacy that has been passed on to us, and it's our responsibility to share it with the next generation. So I'm happy. I mean, even if people want to call me a jazz singer, great, you know, because that means I'm connecting them to the traditional pop of the 20s, 30s, and 40s that was so well written, and it should not be lost in light of history. You know, we need to hold on to that. So happy to stand in the gap.
Just the other day I was watching, I kind of binge watched the Tony Bennett duet videos.
Yeah.
And have you seen the one with Paul McCartney?
I don't think so.
Doing the very thought of you?
Oh my
Which was Paul McCartney's idea to do it with Tony Bennett. And so in the videos that they make, they don't necessarily do the song front to back, because I guess they want you to buy the recording, but they'll have like sitting on the couch talking about the session and showing the session. And so there's Paul McCartney talking about, the old tunes and the influence on him, how Cole Porter was an influence on him as a songwriter. And Tony Bennett says, if you don't know the past, how can you know the future? How are you going to know the future? Which is actually a complicated statement because it's a funny time we're living in. But as a general template, yeah, because one leads and goes to the other. All right, so last thing, unless you have someplace you want to go.
I'm just sitting here, Joe.
Yeah. Yes, you are. But you're doing.
I mean, I'm talking and you're taking notes. It's like, what?
Yeah, you're saying all sorts of cool stuff. I thought maybe you listen to it. It's all been fine.
Everyone should be taking notes when I'm talking from now
No,
on.
I'm taking notes for everyone. But there will be a quiz, so you'll have to, this, it's a big lecture. You're going to play this somewhere. All right. So the thing I don't think that we talked about that we can sort of end with is the difference in our creative process. I mean, we talked about our creative processes, and there is so much in common that we have, traveling in the same lane, or being able to have a conversation like this and just, knowing, like, were you actually surprised that I had nothing on this paper when we started? Because it's like, once we got started, it was a given that we were just going to travel wherever we went.
So many times, I don't want to cut you off, but so many times we have, this is kind of why we need each other on this musical path, because we hold each other accountable, and you will remember stuff that I wrote years ago, and that's right. But also, we fill in the blanks for each other. So just yesterday or today, we were looking for copies of my charts, and I don't always write everything out nice and neat. I have lyrics and I have chords all over the place, and he's created charts for himself. And I said, I really want copies of your charts, but I want the ones that don't just have the title at the top with nothing else on the paper.
No, there will be the key.
The title and the key.
I make a paper for every song, but then if I completely know the song, then I'm just reminded of your key, because every singer has
so I
different
don't want
keys.
those. I don't want
Alright,
those.
fine.
I mean, the key, knowing my own keys would be helpful. But
Okay.
so there are so many pieces where we do fill in the blanks for each other, and because we both have that sort of artistic scatterbrain-ish thing going on. so it's nice. So I've got
Way to soft sell.
I've got lyrics pieced together with literally sticky notes and ripped off envelopes. That like, oh, by the way, here you go, Joe.
Mm-hmm. I've got all sorts of pictures of various, including like the typical one. We should write things down. She'll take a picture and her thumbnail. Like I know what her thumb looks like because it's always in those pictures.
There you go. Here's my song.
So my favorite story about your process, because I think it's fair to say that we look at each other's processes and say how does he or how does she do that?
Amazed by you.
And when a song comes to Beth, it comes to her in one piece, as she mentioned. And for me, I don't have one of anything until I open the space, I sit down, I start playing. I can never compose. I can improvise, and the improvisation can become a composition, but only if it's being recorded. Because if I'm really in that space, like the space when you're driving down the road and you miss your exit because it's 10 miles before, you don't know what happened in that 10 miles, and I don't know what happened when I played. So the fact that Beth has something that comes to her intact amazes me. And of course you know the story I'm going to tell. When my mother passed away, Beth, who doesn't admit that she plays piano, but she does, and she plays piano beautifully. In fact, I'll say this, if any of you own, take it from me, you wouldn't know that one of the tracks, I'm not playing piano, Beth is, and you only know if you read the credits, because she is a very expressive pianist, and that's actually kind of where we meet in that expressive place, right? So when my mother passed away, she sat at her keyboard and just played something that came to her, and I guess you could say, technically you could say you improvised it because it didn't exist before, but you improvise it from that spigot open place, right? And so she sent it to me with a title, Morning, was it? Not like Good Morning, but M-O-U-R-ning. And immediately, because the thing, this is the thing that makes me, it was so perfectly, the phrases were just completely consistent and constructed, and you got to the last A, and it was the same as the first day. If I did something like that, the last day would be different than the first day, because I wouldn't remember what the first day was, right? But this was just one piece, and it took me no time at all to put lyrics to it, which is the reverse of what you think, send it back to Beth, and that became one of the very few tunes, because she would typically not do this on purpose, that she wrote collaboratively. And I sort of imposed it on it because of what Beth sent to me and how like perfectly formed it already was, which is a testimony to how deeply she's connected into that you basically see the whole thing. Okay, so respond to this. My idea is that if I'm in this place where I need to be, and I get into an improvisation, and if you learn improvisation, you learn like what to do here and what to do here and what to do there. But for me, if I'm where I need to be, I'm stepping into something that's already formed before I get in. And so I'm stepping into a fully formed thing. Now, unlike you, I can't hold on to that fully formed thing. I just have to let it come through, and then it dissipates, you know? But I guess that's really how our processes come together. That's like, we just figured it out. There's that common
All right,
place to sing. Okay.
We figured it out.
Okay, and it only took us an hour to get there. That's really good. All right. So anyway, it was delightful to have Beth here because we were doing another recording project. I said, Beth, we have to stay for another hour, and she said, okay. And
then I got here. What are we doing? Oh, okay. I forget. Okay.
I think we got through this all right, Beth.
All right.
All right. Any last words?
That's really morbid. I don't know.
Any final thoughts for this particular recording?
That I am so grateful to you for being right at my side, because you have not just inspired me in so many ways, but you've held me accountable, and you've taken me to task and kind of challenged me to challenge myself, to step out of the way and do what it is I'm supposed to do with the gift that I've been given. And I really don't know where I'd be without you. So that's my, those are my last words. I'm gonna go get hit by a bus. Those are my final words.
I was going to try to say something profound at that point, but now it's just all gone. Okay. But anyway, how about this? Back at you, Beth. All right. So, thank you. Thank you, Beth.
Thank you, Joe.